But before Great. So that official announcement has been made. The recording is in progress. So hopefully we won't keep you very long. We just want to run through, as I said, some of these key legal documents, some changes that we are proposing to put to you as members that have actually already been reviewed and approved by NALA's board, and in some cases by the Charities Regulatory Authority. So in this very brief kind of meeting, what we'll run through is the 5 documents we've actually shared with you already by email or are on our website, www.nala.ie. We'll also go through in more detail the changes that we're proposing to make to 2 of those documents, NALA's Constitution and the Procedural Rules. We'll also provide an update on our strategic plan that we're currently developing, as well as some more details about the Extraordinary General Meeting on the 22nd of March. And then if you do have time or have questions at the end, we'll take them then. So I'm going to kick off, and my name is Colleen Dube, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of NALA, and I'm also joined by a couple of my colleagues, one of whom will take you through some of those documents and changes very soon. So what documents are we talking about? There's 5 documents that we, as I said, have shared with you that are either on our website, or if you do want printed copies of them, you can get in touch and we can arrange that. So the first is what is known as the legal notice, and that's a document that we are obliged to send out to you as members, telling you when the Extraordinary General Meeting is going to be, what are we going to discuss, where it's going to be, and the timings. We've also sent you a document called Summary of Changes, and this is quite a detailed document that goes through all the changes that we are proposing to make to our legal documents. And those 2 legal documents, one of which is first the Constitution, and the Constitution is the legal document that organizations such as NALA need to set out what we do and how we do it, and what we've sent you is 2 different versions. First, the current version of the Constitution showing all the changes that we're proposing to make, as well as the new version. So they're kind of called a red line version and a clean version. We've also sent you the procedural rules, and once again, there's 2 versions of those. There's an existing procedural rules and then a new version of the procedural rules. We haven't marked that one up because there were so many changes, it was just going to be a little too confusing. We've also sent you a code of conduct, and this is a new document that members will have to sign if the Constitution is accepted and new members are joining. So we'll move on to the next slide. So a little bit more about the Constitution and the procedural rules. It said these are 2 very key, important legal documents that set out who NALA is as an organization, what we can do, and how we run the organization. It's very important that this document is kept up to date, and because there are sometimes changes to the laws, we need to look at this document every once in a while, and also look at maybe how we can make it as effective and efficient as it needs to be. We also have a set of what are known as procedural rules, and these provide additional information on certain elements that are in the Constitution. So why are we actually even changing these documents? As I mentioned already, some of the things we need to do are to reflect current laws, particularly the Companies Act, which brought some changes in very recently. Also, following legal advice from our lawyers, we want to make sure that what we have in our Constitution and what we do is best practice, and also to make sure that it's very clear the procedures that we need to follow when we're having meetings, when any members of the board might change. So these have been considered over the last year or so, and now we're bringing them to you for your consideration. So next slide, please. So just before I turn over to my colleague, Michelle, who's going to take you through these changes in more detail, I just want to maybe give you a sense of the things that we have changed. So there's a number of kind of key terms or definitions that we have either added or we've changed in the Constitution. I've mentioned already the Code of Conduct, so that is now in the Constitution. We've also made some changes to our membership. We've added kind of a new group of individuals who will support support NALA, so they're known as supporters, and then we have individual members and an organizational members. We've also had to change the definition of a year. This will become clearer why we've had to do this when Michelle takes over from me. So all of these kind of new definitions are required to support the changes that we are now making to the Constitution. So I'll turn you over to Michelle Reade, who is our Governance and Compliance Officer, and she's going to take you through these changes in more detail. Over to you, Michelle.
Thanks very much, Colleen. So yeah, as Colleen mentioned, we are introducing what is going to be known as a supporter. And that is because, you know, as a member of NALA, you have certain duties. And we're very conscious that some people may want to support NALA, but may not necessarily want the duties that go along with it. They're not particularly onerous, but you know, everybody has to kind of make their own decision, knowing what it means to be a member. So we're setting out clearly, I suppose, the role of a member and the role of a supporter, just so people know what we mean and understand why we're introducing the concept of a supporter. And so a member has some legal duties, which is to pay the membership fee or have it waived, because we will have the ability for members, some members, to have their fee waived. If NALA has to close down in the unlikely event, any member would need to pay €1 or up to €1 towards any debts that NALA might have. Members will be asked to agree to the code of conduct. And as a member, your details will go on what's called the register of members. And this register can be seen by other members of NALA or by the public. So what will be on that will be your name and address. NALA may have other information about you above and beyond that to maintain contact with you, and that not everything will be visible, but it is very important to know that your name and address will be visible to other members and to the public.
I might just come in there for 1 minute.
Of course,
I noticed a very important typo that needs to maybe be flagged. In the 4th bullet point under legal duties of member, it says to sue. It should not say to sue, it should say to use. We will make sure that that is changed in the final version that goes up on our website. So in essence, referring to that register that members, that Michelle mentioned, it's really more for members to use that, particularly in circumstances where they're concerned or they're not happy with how things are happening within NALA, and they want to convene a meeting themselves. And it's one of those reasons it would happen. So just to flag that it is not for members to sue, it is to use.
Thanks, Colleen. Right. What an unfortunate typo. Yes, to use, not to sue. And then the other roles of a member, which you wouldn't be required to do, but you're encouraged to do, will be to support our work, take part in events and meetings and surveys, to give your views, and attend and vote in AGMs and EGMs like this one where possible. So a supporter then would have no legal duties. There would be no fee, although we would accept a donation from supporters or anyone. Supporters may attend EGMs and AGMs, but it's important to note that they would have no voting rights, so they have no say in any decisions that were to be made at AGMs or EGMs. And supporters will be encouraged, like members, to support and promote the work of NALA and to take part in events, meetings and surveys and give views. So I hope those differences are clear to people, and people will be able to make up their mind then if they would like to be a supporter or a member. We're making some other kind of minor changes to membership as well. So at the moment we have 4 categories of member. I think it's individual, free individual, small organization and large organization. In the Constitution, we'll only be defining 2 types of member, which are individual and organizational. Our procedural rules then, which is the other document Colleen mentioned, will break it down further. So we will have just have individuals, but we'll tell you there that, you know, some individuals will be asked to pay, but if anyone can't pay the fee, they can have it waived, but they are the same type of member. They're all an individual member, whether you pay or whether you have the fee waived. We'll break down the organizations in the procedural rules into subcategory A and B. These subcategories are currently the same as what we currently have, large and small organization. But being in the procedural rules rather than the constitution means that if us and the members of NALA would like to change those subcategories in the future, it's just a little bit easier. We are going to also say that our subscription fees should be paid in February of each year, and that will be from next year if the constitution is approved by our members. And this is just to make it a little bit easier to manage the subscription fees, the invoicing, and all that comes along with it for NALA. And you know, everybody then will kind of be a member for the same period of time. And another change then in relation to membership is that we've added or changed an article to clarify that our directors will review membership periodically. At the moment, the Constitution says that our directors would admit members to the register, whereas in reality, that's not really how it would work. So we're clarifying that just to say that our directors will review our membership. And just so people can see, then we're just laying out in these tables here, so people can kind of visualize a bit better what our current membership structure is and what the new membership structure would be. If you take some time to look at it, you know, you'll see that while it's kind of laid out a little bit differently, it's not very different in reality. We have the 4 categories at the moment: free individual, small and large organization, and the cost of membership and the amount of votes they have are set out beside that. Our new categories are just individual and organization, but we still break down those subcategories into the 4 that are already there. And we're not proposing any change to the cost of membership or the voting rights associated with those types of membership. So they will all stay the same. One of the other key changes we're making to our constitution is in relation to the directors or the members of our board, or trustees, which is another name for them. So at the moment, each director, once they're appointed to the board, it will be a director for 2 years. And the best practice and advice that comes from the charities regulators is that those terms will be 3 years rather than 2, to allow our directors kind of get used to NALA and to give a decent amount of time before they might leave the board again. We're saying that a director then will serve a maximum of 9 years on our board, which is 3 terms of 3 years. Previously, or in the current version, it's 8, which is 4 terms of 2 years. So we're just kind of changing that to match the new 3-year terms. A co-opted director, which is a director that's selected by our other directors and not voted in by our members, might be asked to seek election by the members after their first term of office. And a co-opted director is somebody who might be asked to join the board for a particular skill set. If we feel our board doesn't have experience in finance or risk or something like that, for example, we can find somebody, or our board can find somebody with that expertise and ask them to join. But after their first term, then we may ask them just to put themselves forward for nomination like any other director, and have our members vote on whether they want them to be on the board. Officer positions, which are our chairperson, vice chairperson, and treasurer, they'll be limited to 2 terms of 3 years, similar to the new terms of a normal director, which will be 3 years. But they were limited to 2 terms. Now they can serve that maximum of 9 years on the board that we mentioned above, but one of those terms would be as an ordinary director and not as an officer. And that's to allow new people with new skill sets or a new way of working to get an opportunity to be in those officer positions. And if a director has served in our board for 9 years, they must retire, and they have to be retired for 3 years before they can run again for election. Another couple of things we're changing. So we're bringing back proxy voting. And I say bringing back because I believe it was in our constitution previously, some years ago. And proxy voting is where a member can nominate another person to attend and vote at a meeting like an AGM or an EGM on their behalf if they can't make it. And they would do this by completing a proxy form, which NALA would provide with all the documentation when we send out stuff in relation to an AGM or an EGM. and they would send it back to us. And they can appoint or ask somebody who's not a member of NALA to attend on their behalf. It doesn't have to be another member of NALA. We just need to know that the vote or the decision is coming from the person who is our member. And this would only be for individual members, because organizational members would kind of tell us in advance anyway who will be coming on behalf of their organization to vote. So there's just not a need for proxy voting for an organization. And another thing we're changing is our quorum. So a quorum is the minimum number of members that must be present at one of our general meetings for it to take place and for decisions to be made. So at the moment, we say that 20 members must be present, and we're just changing that to 20 members or 10% of members, whichever is the lower. And that is kind of to cater for a situation where, an unlikely situation, but a possible situation where our membership might drop. I mean, at the moment we have over 1,500 members, but if for some reason we only had 100 members, it would be very hard to get 20 people to come along to a meeting. So 10% then of that would be kind of a more appropriate but still representative amount of our members to be at a meeting to vote. So it's 20 members or 10% of the members, whichever is the lowest. Another change we're making is that our secretary must be appointed by the directors and not elected by members. At the moment, our constitution says that our secretary, along with like the chairperson, the vice chairperson, and the treasurer, would be appointed by members. But there's a requirement in the Companies Act that it wouldn't be. So the secretary is required to have a very particular kind of skill set and be available and capable to do the job. Therefore, our directors will appoint the secretary in the future. It won't be done through an election, and that's to make sure that the secretary that is appointed has the time and the skills to do the role of the secretary. And then I suppose finally, or almost finally, we've improved just the wording in some of the articles that are in our constitution, ones that we found hard to read and understand ourselves, as to how we should be applying them as the people trying to follow the constitution. So there's a few there. Replacing a casual vacancy on the board. We've just clarified that wording so that everybody knows how a casual vacancy should be filled. How to calculate the terms of our directors, and how to kind of manage those co-opted directors if we appoint those co-opted directors for their skill sets. And here's the finally, I think we've reduced the amount of times the board must meet yearly. So our constitution sets out how often our board must meet. It currently says 6. So we're changing that to that they must meet 5 times. Now that doesn't mean that the board won't meet more than 5 times, but it just means that that's the minimum amount of times they have to meet in a year. So I think that's it on the summary of what we're changing. It's quite a bit, but all really set out to try just to improve the quality of the constitution and how we operate.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I'll hand back to Colleen now, I think, who's going to just talk about the draft strategic plan, because that's another thing that will be on our agenda at our EGM later in the month. Colleen.
Thanks, Michelle. So as many of you may know already, we've been in touch through kind of the e-zine and also by surveys. We're currently developing our new strategic plan for the period 2024 to 2030. And this strategic plan, like most strategic plans, will set out what our kind of high level goals are, what we want to achieve in that period, and also some additional actions to make sure we achieve those goals. And those actions will be above and beyond what we're doing, I suppose, every day to kind of advance the vision of NALA. And when will you see that document? As Michelle mentioned, our intention is to have a draft of that strategic plan. We've been beavering away behind the scenes with our board, with a kind of a specially convened advisory group, with staff, with members. So the idea is that we bring you a draft of that at the EGM, and we're intending to have kind of a discussion with you to get further insights and opinions from you so that we can finalize the plan and then bring it back to the AGM and launch it at the AGM at the end of May. So in order for you to, I suppose, have that kind of input, we really would appreciate that you would attend the Extraordinary General Meeting, which is happening on the 22nd of March, both to consider and decide on the changes that we're proposing to the Constitution and the Strategic Plan, or sorry, the Constitution and the Procedural Rules, but also to inform the Strategic Plan. So if we move to the next slide, I can just give you a little bit of information again about the Extraordinary General Meeting. You should have received information either by email or post. If you haven't for some reason, please do get in touch with us or check our website. And we would ask you to register by the 18th of March and to either complete the online registration form or print it out and get it back to us, or please do get in touch with us and we can help you register for the EGM and answer any questions that you might have. So the running order for the day is we're hoping to meet everybody at 10 a.m. and it'll be in the Ashling Hotel on Parkgate Street near Houston Station. We'll kick off at 11 a.m. The first, I suppose, order of business will be to vote on the Constitution and the procedural rules. And then we plan to have a discussion about the strategic plan, and then there will be lunch. So we do hope that you can make some time in your very busy schedules to attend this really important day, because we do want to make sure that the kind of the legal documents that we have are, I suppose, best in practice, but also that they are legally compliant, and then to hear your own views on how we can ensure that what we're doing in NALA represents the voice and the activities of literacy in Ireland. So I think that's largely all we wanted to cover today. So we're willing to take any questions that anybody who's attending might have.
Hi, Colleen. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Suzanne.
I just have a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Great.
And the first one is, what happens if it does get passed?
Michelle, do you want to take that question?
Was that if it doesn't get passed, Suzanne?
Doesn't get passed.
Doesn't get passed. Yes, so if it doesn't get passed, then our existing constitution and procedural rules that are in place at the moment will remain in place. So, you know, there'll be no changes to our membership. Those terms of boards won't change. And what we'd likely do then is probably try get some feedback as to why people didn't want to vote it through, and see if we can address those concerns and come back at it again, because there is some key things in there, you know, in terms of best practice that we're advised on by our regulator that we really do need and want to change. So it would be the case that we would have a look at it again and try come up with something that we think our members would pass.
Perfect, thank you. And just another question is, why is the word year defined?
Oh, yeah, good question. Sorry, I forgot to cover that. So we defined the word year for a couple of reasons. As the main one is when we're talking about terms of our board, you know, at the moment, when a member is appointed to our board, they're appointed for a term of 2 years, and they're generally appointed at an AGM. But an AGM isn't held exactly at the same time every year. So if you were appointed as a member of our board, Suzanne, on the 1st of April, 2022, say, your term would end on the 1st of April, 2024, but we may not have our AGM until the 30th of April, which would mean that for, you know, a whole month, you're not a board member and nobody is in your place. So we've defined year to be the periods between AGMs because they're not held exactly on the same date every year. So it's for that continuity to make sure that it's known what we mean, that we kind of count between AGMs as years.
That makes sense. Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome.
And do we have any other questions? No, I guess it must have been very clear. So for those of you who might be watching this back on the recording, by all means, if you do have any questions following it, please do get in touch. Our contact details are on the website, and ideally you can either send those to membership@nala.ie or directly to Michelle. So Reade, M-R-E-A-D-E nala.ie, or you can always ring the free phone number 1-800 20 20 65, and we can answer those questions for you. So once again, thank you everyone for your time joining us today for the webinar or tuning in to the recording, and we look forward to seeing many of you, please, at the extraordinary general meeting on the 22nd of March. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.